So, first of all, James Gunn is one of those directors, one of the few directors, he's kind of played both sides. He's played the Marvel thing, he's played the DC thing, and he's done both of them really well. Obviously, the Suicide Squad has not come out yet, but from the trailers we've seen, the Suicide Squad looks dope. It really does. It looks
Hmm.
phenomenal. And I really like James Gunn as a director. I really like the things that he does. So a fan took the initiative to ask James Gunn on Twitter, is there even a remote chance that we will see a big blockbuster crossover between the Marvel universe and the DC universe? And his response was pretty interesting. So James Gunn replied, and I quote, I've casually talked to the powers that be at both Marvel and DC about it. I would love for it to happen. I don't think it's likely, but I don't think that it's an impossibility either. That said, just constantly seeing crossovers and mashups is less enchanting to me than a strong story. I, I I see where he's coming from. James Gunn seems like the director that, or the type of director, excuse me, that he's gonna take a strong story over what anybody else wants.
Yeah, which I
If
think
he
every
if
director should. It should
Right,
never. Yeah,
if the story isn't strong, even if all of the fans and all your producers and all of your the studio and everybody else is like, hey, we want you to do this. If the story sucks, it's not gonna be good.
yeah.
And I kind of respect James Gunn for that. But a Marvel DC crossover isn't off the table. Um, at at face value, take Marvel and DC, take the MCU and the DCEU as they are right now. Miguel, would you want to see a Marvel DC crossover film or no?
Well, I mean, I think
That's a loaded question. There's a lot. There's a hell of a lot to consider with that question.
it's honestly like one of those things where it's obviously the DCEU needs something to revive it back
Yeah,
to its hype because there really isn't much hype. It's just, hey, there's some movies coming out.
Blue Beetle.
Um, yeah, there's been like obviously there's been some like crossovers already in the comics. There's been a plethora of
Uh-huh.
crossovers, with crossover classics like the Marvel DC collection. Like they talk about that, about what could happen, and it's interesting stuff. I was never able to read up on that just to see like because like if you want to know how a crossover would be, read those comics. You'll know if like if it's has the capability to have a film adaptation of it. I just don't know how the story would play out, to be honest. I've never seen a storyline where they had to cross over and I liked,
Hmm.
or I've never seen any of that for that matter. So I mean, I don't know. I think with the direction MCU is going to go into a more like darker cinematic universe, it could work at this very moment
Right.
with how the DC obviously is. I mean, Wonder Woman 2 was pretty campy a little bit. Shazam was pretty campy. Not saying that's a bad thing, but you know how lighthearted those movies were. You know what
Right.
I mean? Like there
Yeah.
wasn't no like real like heavy weight to those movies. And granted the MCU kind of has that. There is like, weight to it, but it's not like end of days to the point where like
Right.
these characters could legitimately die. Endgame was the only one that I can think of that had that. Age of Ultron had that because of Quicksilver, but it was that death was hard for a lot of people, I'm sure, but it was so sudden and it didn't really carry much
Yeah.
weight.
Well, and he was also introduced in that movie.
Yeah,
He
so there
wasn't a
wasn't.
character that we had held on to for 3 or 4 movies. Um, As you said before, a Marvel DC crossover is not completely unheard of. In 1996, Ron Mars and Peter David wrote a crossover storyline involving both universes, and basically this is the plot summary straight off of Wikipedia, um, which I know is the most reliable source anybody's ever seen. Right? This plot summary says two godlike brothers who personify the DC and Marvel universes each become aware of the other's existence, and they challenge each other to a series of duels involving each universe's respective superheroes.
Yep,
Now,
that sounds like a comic.
I do not think that could be adapted into a film. I think that would crash and burn hard. But Uh, there is like a 0.5% chance of seeing a Marvel DC crossover event. For me, it's a cool idea. Like, it's fun to think about and it's fun to debate, like, who would win, but I don't think now is the time. You know, the DCEU is a mess, and I'm sorry, but we've talked about that before. It's a mess. At least I think, I don't want to speak for you, but I think in both of our opinions, the DCEU is kind of a mess right now.
Collectively, as a general fan audience for the DC universe, it is kind of a mess. Like, let's be honest,
Yeah,
there's more heated debates on DCU than there is in Marvel, the
right.
MCU, and it'd be impossible right now to do a crossover. Like, the DCEU has to have some sort of, it has to be like 80% love for the
Yeah,
franchise. Right now, it's sitting at like maybe like 50 or 60 right now,
yeah.
and that's not great. Well, I'll be honest, that's not great. But whenever the DCEU starts gaining a little bit more momentum and they have their own like legitimate cinematic universe, that's where I think the whole crossover could possibly take place. I
Right.
think if it's gonna sound stupid as hell, if the DC were to do a crossover, I feel like it wouldn't be with Marvel. It could be with Mortal Kombat because there obviously was a crossover.
Was there really?
It was the game.
I didn't know that. True. You're right.
Yeah, the
I'm an
game.
idiot. You're right.
Like Shao Kahn, I think combines with Apocalypse. No, I'm thinking of someone. No, I think he combines with Darkseid or something like that. If I'm not mistaken, I
Mm,
don't know. He does something that makes him a more powerful being, and
right.
obviously, the DC converses, which by the way, like the DC and Mortal Kombat crossover is still to this day, it's still talked about. I mean, with the new Mortal Kombat movie game that came out, um, you know how like those fighting games, they now have like dialogues before that legitimate fight.
Yeah.
They still like some of those still have like talks of like that crossover event, like with Raiden
Hmm.
and Sub Zero and Batman, like and I think it was Batman and Superman, like the dialogues that they have with one another before they fight, they
Hmm.
actually mention that specific game that had that crossover.
Really.
So there's a good chance that I could see more. I would be more inclined to see that DC Mortal Kombat crossover than I would with the MCU and DC because I don't know, like the DCU is just it's left the train. It's left the train station. It's
Yeah.
literally gone full steam ahead to its own direction, and it's kind of hard to do that unless we see it, unless we see it like we'll probably see it probably like a decade later. Because let's be honest, the MCU's vision is planned out decades ahead of what we are. Like, trust me, I'm sure the MCU is decades ahead of where we are right now.
Yeah. And I don't know. The way I see it, DC is a mess. They don't really have a clear direction, at least that's visible to us fans. The MCU is kind of going through a big transition with this whole Disney Sony multiverse thing. Now, like you said, in 15, 20 years, if we've reached superhero fatigue and people, if the MCU has
It
exhausted all of its storylines, if the DCEU has exhausted the Snyderverse and its main DCEU, and there's literally nowhere else, if there's nowhere else for either universe to go out with a bang, have them fight each other. But I think right now you can't do that right now. It doesn't make enough sense.
I would see that. I could see that now whenever we hit the hero fatigue, the superhero fatigue.
Yeah.
I
Because
could see that
we
happening.
just talked about that with Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man film. The first Spider-Man film with Sam Raimi, that was kind of the beginning of this superhero madness movement that we saw into what built the MCU. And then, I mean, we're gonna hit a point where the MCU is no more. Where it has to end because it has to. You have to tell the end of a story. And again, I think we will reach superhero fatigue, and that may not happen for 15 years. It may not happen for 20 years. It may not happen for 30 years. But
It
who
will happen.
knows? It will happen. You know what I would really like to see? DC. As much as we hate on DC, and we like DC, but they do really well with their animated stuff. I would love if you could get Disney and Sony and Warner Brothers to tag team like an adult style animated Marvel versus DC thing. That would be cool. I would
I could
watch the
see
I
that
would watch the
happening.
crap out of that.
I could see that happening a lot more because the Marvel animated universe is not all that well. It's
Yeah.
not great.
Well, the problem is all the red tape because Disney owns certain characters. Sony owns certain characters.
Mm-hmm.
Warner Brothers owns certain characters. That would be the issue, is fighting through all the red tape of getting them together. It would literally take all three companies being like, we're this is fine. We're doing this. We're allowing this to happen. Um but if they were going to do an animated thing, I would like for it to be dark, like R-rated level, gritty. I don't know. I would have to be like that.
Mm-hmm.
But so this is the fun part. This is where we're gonna have a little bit of a debate here, you and I. So in the 1996 comic, there were 11 battles that took place in this Marvel DC crossover storyline. And I thought that it would be fun to go through each one of these battles and talk about who should win, who would we each have win, and then as I knock over my microphone, um, and then we can I actually have who actually won in the comic book, which character won against the other. So first matchup, you ready?
Yeah.
First matchup was Aquaman versus Namor.
Okay, you're entering a realm where it's like I have to know that storyline in the comics. I know nothing about Namor.
That's fair.
Like I'm gonna be straight honest with you. I know nothing about Namor.
That's fair.
Jack shit. I know a little bit of Aquaman, pretty much from the DCEU, from Flashpoint, and all of the New 52. Like I know Aquaman from those, and Aquaman is he's completely different from the DCEU. The DCEU Aquaman is by I forgot his name now. Who plays Aquaman? Jason Momoa.
Yes.
That Aquaman right now is very laissez-faire. Like he doesn't really want to be the ruler, so to speak.
Yeah, he's kind of just like, let me drink beer and chill out on my own. Like,
Yeah,
I don't want to. I don't want to fight you.
Like he wanted nothing to do with Atlantis, as compared to Namor, which I know from the comics based on Black Panther and Namor. Namor is very like against the land population. So obviously that's the case. And Aquaman the same way. Like he has some animosity towards the land people, but it's not
as much as Namor.
Yeah.
I could see Namor, which we know Namor is kind of a very emotionally driven character. He's angry, he's defensive.
Mm-hmm.
I could
you got to understand, comic and animated series Aquaman is pretty much like that. He's very emotional, I guess. Very opinionated against land folks.
So they're very similar, I guess, in a lot of ways.
You see that. I've seen that with New 52, and I've also seen that with like Injustice, because during the events of Injustice, Aquaman was with Superman with the whole point of like you have to kill to have justice.
Yeah.
Which honestly, like Aquaman was like he never had that. He never established that line of like, do I kill or do not kill? He was like, you bad, take me down.
Yeah.
You going 6 feet under.
Well,
So
I'll go ahead and tell you in the original comic book, uh, Aquaman wins, and he wins by throwing a whale on top of Namor and crushing him.
again, like I don't know Namor's powers.
I know.
Not really.
I think they have similar powers. And keep in mind,
Yeah,
this is from the
like
90s.
I've seen like I've seen on Instagram where it's like which hero came out when.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think Aquaman came first and then Namor came next. And like you know what I mean? Like certain individuals. So like Iron Man, I think came after Batman.
Yeah.
So like it's like one of those. It's like I can't really tell. Like the I couldn't give you a legitimate answer as to who would win. Obviously in the
Yeah.
comics, Aquaman wins. And honestly, I'm 100% for that because it's mainly based on popularity. People know
Right.
Aquaman more than they know Namor.
Well, and it's kind of funny that you say it's based on popularity because the first 6 matchups um, of the 11 were decided by the writers. The big ones, the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, the last 5 matchups were determined by readers. There was a vote between audience members and readers of the comics that determined who won.
Mm-hmm.
So the last 5 are kind of like the big characters of each universe, so it's kind of interesting. The next one was Elektra versus Catwoman. Now, I would say Elektra beats the hell out of Catwoman, just because I think Elektra is a little bit more. Catwoman is a little bit more burglar-esque type villain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Elektra is more like I can freaking wreck you, kind of character, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So who would you pick between Elektra and Catwoman to win in a fight? The two of them, death to one of them fight.
Be Elektra to me. Yeah.
And we're both right because in the comics, Elektra won the
There you
fight
go.
between her and Catwoman. The next one, interesting one. The Flash versus Quicksilver.
Flash.
Yeah,
100%.
the Flash won. And the Flash won because he can run faster than Quicksilver can.
Yes.
I don't really know. Does the Flash have more powers than does he have like different powers than Quicksilver?
The Flash is pretty much like he gets his power from the Speed Force, which if you guys have seen Flashpoint, you know he has that power to literally change history if given the choice. Like you saw with the new, I think it was Apocalypse War, you saw that because he's Flash has done a Flashpoint event twice. I
I
think
really
right
hope we
now
see this in the Flash movie. I hope we get a little bit.
a
I
little
know
bit
it's
of
been
Flashpoint.
rumored to be a little bit of a
Yeah.
Flashpoint like storyline. I hope we get a Flashpoint thing. And we
Yeah,
did see a
same.
little bit of that in Justice League.
Yeah, because
When the
listen,
Flash goes back to warn Bruce Wayne of what happens with Superman and everything that's going to go on.
which fun fact, in the Snyder cut, like, because obviously, like in the Josh Whedon cut, like what he does and whenever he was facing off with Superman, like you didn't really tell, like you could tell he was like pretty weak, obviously. But in the
Yeah.
Snyder cut, it was the same scene between Flash and Superman. The way he positioned his hand,
Yeah.
like you could tell based on the Snyder cut that he was that close, like that close to entering the Speed Force to take down Superman. Like because in the Snyder cut you saw that whenever the explosion happened, he immediately reached out his hand and went into the Speed Force. Like he
Yeah.
has that power to
He does.
absolutely stop time and do what he needs. And I thought that was so fucking cool that the fact that in the event whenever Superman was revived,
Mm-hmm.
when he turns like fucked up and he starts attacking the Justice League, Flash was this close to enter the Speed Force just to take down Superman, and I'm
Right.
pretty sure wholeheartedly he could easily do it because the usual thing is Superman's faster than a speeding bullet.
Hmm.
And that quote right there gave the debate whether Superman's faster than the Flash. There's no question about it. Flash is 100% faster than
Well,
Superman.
but you have to think you did have that scene in Justice League though, where the Flash is running and Superman is like looking at him, like as
Yeah,
he's
but if you understand that point, he's able to be just as fast as the Flash, but the Flash can go much faster.
that's fair,
Yeah, because
and I
in
can see
in
how that makes
Apocalypse
sense.
in Apocalypse War, at the end of everything, which by the way, spoiler alert, guys, um, they win, but at the cost of literally like losing everybody. Everyone's already been fucked up to no
Yeah,
return. And Superman literally looks at Flash and be like, you have to do it again.
yeah,
And Flash is like, you mean another flashpoint? Like, I don't like that's probably like it'll probably I don't think that's gonna help. And he was like, honestly, man, anything is better than what we just went through.
yeah,
So Superman understands that the Flash is much faster. And you don't see that with Quicksilver. So back to
right.
the debate.
That's
You
why
don't
I
see
loved
that with
his.
Quicksilver
That's why I loved the Flash's storyline in Zack Snyder's Justice League.
because it
That
really
scene
hinted
where
at
he
his true
finally
power.
like really gets it, and he's like almost reversing time.
Hmm.
That was so emotional. Like that. Whoops. That was such like a big. That was such a big thing.
The
So
thing, the thing with the Flash at the Snyder Cut is the fact that he does have the ability to do it. He just doesn't feel comfortable doing it
right.
because he doesn't know the full extent of his powers yet.
Yeah.
Because obviously, Flash from Apocalypse War is much more experienced than Flash in the Snyder Cut.
Mm,
So, 100%, the Flash is winning this.
yeah.
What does the comic
So
say?
the Flash wins, obviously, and the Flash
How?
wins because he can get the upper hand on Quicksilver because he can move quicker than Quicksilver clan can.
Hmm.
Quicker than Quicksilver. He can move quicker than he can. So obviously the Flash gets the upper hand. The next fight is Robin versus Jubilee. I couldn't tell you the first thing about Jubilee. Robin wins, I can tell you that. From what I understand, Jubilee is an X-Men member, or
Oh
an
yeah,
X-Men
she
character.
has
Yeah,
she has like a electric whip. No, not really. I'm thinking of Deadpool,
I
pretty
couldn't
much.
really comment on that one because I don't really know enough about the character, but Robin wins that fight. And then
Yeah,
next is another interesting matchup.
you know why though? It's because it's always the same thing with like whenever Batman or Robin fights someone,
Uh
it's always like give Batman time to research,
huh. Yeah.
pretty much, because everyone loves to talk about what's it called? I think it's Doom or something like that, where
Uh
it's
huh.
where Batman like created like a shit ton of contingency plans
Yeah.
against
Yeah. Yeah.
his peers,
Uh huh.
and someone gets it and uses it against them. So
Yeah.
like, trust me, have you like listened or seen the audio tapes of Batman
Mm-mm.
and his contingency plans? They are
I've not.
fucking they're they are rough. Like he literally says like in some of them he does like in-depth research of them. Others they're just like, eh, do this. Yeah, this lady, yeah, just do this and he's good. And like others are like much more detailed in how to take them down. And I think that's fucking dangerous. Like
Yeah.
Batman. So I think Robin has that same tenacity of like actually
Probably.
doing research to take down
I would
Jubilee. I'm
agree.
sure because there's obviously a weakness to Jubilee. Every single superhero has a weakness, and Batman is the only one to actually like research it and put it to use.
Right.
So
He's
that's why
smart.
Batman is
He's smart in that way.
yeah, he's
Next matchup is a really interesting one. The Silver Surfer versus Green Lantern.
ooh.
Yeah, right. That when I saw that one, I was like, "Ooh, like that would be kind of an interesting, uh, that would be kind of an interesting matchup."
Yeah,
Um, let me.
because I don't know, it's something look, the Green Lantern is strong. He is a formidable opponent. But the only time, how can I put this? The only time where I've seen like him showing his full strength is whenever he's with uh the the actual Green Lantern Corp. The Green Lantern Corp is, or like the Green Lantern. Only time I've seen him like at his like at full strength is whether he's with the Green Lantern Corp, which again
Right.
is an entirely different civilization. It's kind of the same as like the Asgardians. It's like they're a different interstellar being. So like as a group, because
That's
like
fair.
if you think about it with like the Asgardians, like I kind of like relate the Asgardians with the Green Lantern because it's an outer world civilization. And I feel like even though Thor is extremely powerful, I think he is even more when with the Asgardians behind him. So I feel like with the Green Lantern, like yeah, it's based on his like will. I think that's the thing is will is his power.
Yeah.
So, but with the Silver Surfer, he is definitely like his powers are, from what I know from just listen, just from movie experience,
Uh huh.
his powers are given from Galactus, if I'm not mistaken,
Yes. Yeah.
and that's an all powerful being right there.
Q 2004 Fantastic Four movie.
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So the Green Lantern, I say the Green Lantern does have. I think it's a good fight, but I feel like the Silver Surfer takes the hand.
And he ultimately in the comic book he does because the Silver Surfer and the Green Lantern collide, and it sends off such a blast of cosmic energy. It actually hurts the Green Lantern, but the Silver Surfer is like unfazed, and Silver Surfer wins that fight. The next fight is one that I I could kind of see going either way, but I'm glad that it went in the direction that it did. The next fight is Thor versus Shazam.
Thor.
I would agree. I would agree because Thor seems, while you could argue that their powers are similar, I think that Thor seems more in control of his powers.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I don't
Because
really know much about Shazam past the first film that he was
Shazam is
actually
still
in.
Shazam is still very much a kid in a grown man's body.
Yeah,
So his capabilities is limited to his adolescent age. Even though he
right.
has the wisdom of Solomon, you don't see it much. You really don't see it much.
Yeah,
But with Thor, like he's a couple thousand years old, so he has the wisdom. He has the arrogance, but he does have the wisdom of a seasoned warrior. And I think with Mjolnir at his hand, he is a formidable opponent. But barring without Mjolnir, I think the match is evenly well said
it is. It's a
because we've
good
seen,
match. It's a
yeah,
very good match.
because we've seen like him and his capabilities without the hammer. Because
Yeah,
like again, he's not the god of hammers. He's the god of thunder. So
right.
you know like his powers. So it'd be an interesting matchup.
I feel like Odin. Are you the god of hammers or the god of thunder?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I don't think Shazam could take it. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. Well, Thor does end up winning in the comic books, and it's because the fight is so rough that Shazam is forced to change back to Billy Batson, and he tries to change back to Shazam, and Thor ends up intercepting the lightning bolt to change him back,
Hmm.
and Thor ends up beating him. So that's a I don't know, that's a really fun one.
Yeah.
So
Also
here's what we
because
get.
Thor, also because Thor is like more, he's like comic book Thor is well um
Well
well
trained.
known to like no well known to like legitimately kill someone.
Yeah, that's fair too.
100%.
He's a little bit more brutal than MCU Thor.
Yeah.
So
and
the
more brutal than
last,
Shazam.
yeah, the last five are arguably the most interesting because it's some of their biggest characters up against each other.
Hmm.
So probably my favorite fight of the entire thing is the next one. And I'm really curious what you think of this. Are you ready?
Hmm.
Superman versus the Hulk.
Superman, I
That's a
think.
dope matchup right there.
Superman, I think, gets the cake, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
As I have always been a huge Hulk fan, and as much as it pains me inside to say Superman, I have to go with Superman because uh, Superman probably has the upper hand in terms of the powers he has. And in the comic books, Superman does win. And I will say in the comics, the Hulk holds his own, though. In terms of
Well,
strength,
here,
the
listen.
Hulk almost overpowers Superman.
Mhm. It's pretty much the same principle as like a Doomsday and Superman. The second Doomsday is introduced into a battle with Superman, Superman literally has to send him out of space
Yeah.
because the collateral damage is going to be substantial between them. And you've seen obviously with I think the two stories now with New 52 and the original comics, like Superman does die
Yeah.
in the event of fighting Doomsday, but I don't know. I think listen, what you're talking about right now has already been well said, again, like I don't remember those videos with the superhero death match. Do you know what that
Yeah,
YouTube video
yeah.
is?
There's a couple of good YouTube
Yeah,
videos about would the Hulk win or would Superman win or
yeah,
the
yeah.
Superman.
So like I've seen those, but I just don't remember the video. I think Superman wins, if I'm not
He
mistaken,
does. Well,
mainly because he is honestly like he is he is what's it called? He's infinite in his powers.
he is.
Hulk is limited by his rage.
Yeah.
That's
And the
where
Hulk
it kind
gets
of.
tired too.
Hmm.
Basically, the heat vision is what really saves Superman. Um, the Hulk actually almost takes down Superman in terms of like brute strength,
Hmm.
but Superman, because he can move quicker, his heat vision, Superman ends up winning the fight. The next one is Spider-Man versus Superboy. I don't know the first thing about Superboy. Spider-Man ends up winning the fight, which is pretty dope.
Yeah,
I think Superboy is kind of just the B version of Superman, to be completely honest. Uh,
it's literally it's basically Superman except he doesn't know his strength. Same thing I keep saying with like the Flash
right.
because in regards to like comic writing, again, Superboy is he's limited by his age right now.
Yeah.
Unless he becomes, an adult Superman, it becomes the new Superman. I don't know. It's different with Superboy and Superman. That's
Right.
that's been well said. Like I think in the new 52 animated show, there was a moment where the new Titans were fighting um, the Justice League, and
Yeah.
obviously Superman gets the upper hand because he's well experienced in his powers.
Could you see Spider-Man beating Superboy?
I could see it. I'm curious to see how it happens.
Well, the this says that with the advantage of his spider sense, Spider-Man won by tying Superboy with impact webbing and electrocuting him with high voltage, which knocked him out.
Oh,
So Spider-Man kind of uses his tech abilities a little bit.
mm-hmm.
Um, Next fight: Wolverine versus Lobo. It's another good one. Which Lobo is not a character I'm like super on.
he's he's like an intergalactic, which I would much rather have saw Deadpool and Lobo
Yeah, I could see that too.
because both of them are pretty much like bounty hunters,
Right.
and also Deadpool has the healing factor as Wolverine.
Yeah.
I want to say Wolverine.
You think Wolverine?
I'm wrong, ain't I?
It's Wolverine.
Oh, okay, cool.
Wolverine beats Lobo, and it's super brutal. It's in a bar, which of course it's in a bar. Wolverine.
Beautiful.
He probably had a cigarette in his mouth as well.
Well, so does
Um,
Lobo. If you know Lobo's character, he
yeah,
always has a
yeah, yeah,
drink
yeah,
in a cigar.
yeah. So obviously Wolverine wins. Next fight is Storm versus Wonder Woman. It's
Wonder
another
Woman.
really good fight. I would have to go Wonder Woman. Me personally, not saying this happens in the comics, I would have to go Wonder Woman as well. Um,
Mainly because I mean, when I think of like crossover battles, I always go down to um the most aggressive versions of them. And the most aggressive version of Wonder Woman is during the Injustice storyline where she's like, I'm here to kill.
right,
She's more brutal than Superman. Like Wonder Woman is probably the most hated character in the Injustice storyline because just because of her legitimate brutality. Like she has no remorse. Like she will
right.
kill.
Yeah, she's hardcore.
Mm.
You might be kind of surprised after this one.
Storm really wins.
Storm wins.
Ow.
Now, here's what it says. After Wonder Woman drops Thor's hammer in order to allow the fight to happen as it was intended to, yes, Wonder Woman is worthy of holding Mjolnir. Storm won the battle after repeatedly hitting Wonder Woman with lightning after their brief melee encounter. So, if it was just hand to hand combat, Wonder Woman would probably win. But if I guess given Storm's different abilities,
Mm-hmm.
she did end up beating Wonder Woman. Which Storm is one of the more powerful X Men, so I could see it.
I think she's an Omega level mutant, if I'm not mistaken.
She
There's
is.
a certain. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like the
Yeah,
different
she.
classes of X-Men.
Yes, she is. Storm is one of the top tier, which I mean, she can do some crazy stuff. Storm. I always really like Storm's character a lot. I kind of find it interesting that Wonder Woman uh could hold Mjolnir.
I know,
It
but
doesn't surprise me because she's kind of a god too, or goddess. But
I
yeah,
think it.
Storm ends up winning that battle.
Hmm. Okay, I'll go for that because again, there's different levels of mutants, and I think the X-Men comics are probably the most interesting to me because it actually levels like classes of like different of like the powers of them.
Right.
And the Omega one is where it's like, yo, this character is a world breaker. I'm trying to
Right.
think of who are the Omega level. Um, I'm looking that up right now.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I think if I'm not mistaken, I think what's his name? Iceman. Iceman is a Omega level.
Is he
Mutant.
really?
He is.
Why? Wolverine is surely right.
I don't think so.
Really?
Nope, he's not.
That's
The
interesting
top.
because Wolverine is like the main. He's the main shiz.
Yeah. So like if you think about it, Magneto is an Omega level
Yes.
um character.
Charles would be right.
Yeah. No, he's
What?
not. He's not.
Charles is not an Omega level mutant.
No. Well, who am I thinking of? Who am I thinking of right now?
Jean would be
Jean with the Phoenix Force is an Omega level
right.
mutant.
Honestly, I would say
Um,
Jean without the Phoenix Force is Omega level.
she's in the same realm
I
as
find it crazy that
Professor X.
Storm is Omega level, but
I know.
Charles is not.
Yeah,
Charles
like
Xavier is not.
the ones that I'm seeing right now that I can immediately tell is Iceman, Legion, and if you do you know who Legion is?
Kind of.
Legion is Professor X and Jean Grey combined, but with huge mental disability. Not
That
disability,
sounds
but like
freaking terrifying.
huge. Like, have you seen the X-Men show? Have you seen the FX show of Legion?
Yeah.
It really put that. It really put it put Legion into the spotlight because it really showed the amount of power this man has and the fact that
Yeah.
he's so unstable. Even like with Jean Grey, she could become unstable with the Phoenix Force, but with Legion, he gets that from his own mind.
Right.
Like it is like Legion is probably one of the most dangerous
Wow.
X-Men characters to this date.
That's fair.
Yeah, the classes of the X-Men mutants, those interest me a lot because I would
Yeah.
again, that's why people want to see
So what
the
class is
X-Men.
Wolverine in? What is Logan in?
Let me check that out right now.
Because I don't know. He's just such an important character in the whole X-Men world. You know what I mean? In the
What?
mutant world, he's so important.
He's a beta level. He's a beta buddy.
Really? Beta
He's a
bitch.
beta bitch. Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
Wow, man. That kind of shocks me a little bit.
It's pretty much like the way they described it was like he's a beta level mutant, which means that he can actually pass off as a human.
That's fair because he
Yeah.
can.
Yeah, he could pass as
Yeah.
that. The difference with like when you compare that to Legion, who is she like you can tell me like this is a mutant. This is a godlike mutant.
Right.
So it's yeah, so like Jean Grey is a class 5 mutant, and what else? Yeah, so like if I'm thinking of Wolverine's only a second level mutant.
Wow.
So there's
That's pretty wild.
alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, and omega. So there's 6 levels to this shit.
All right, the last fight of the night is arguably probably the most interesting one other than Superman and the Hulk.
Probably know where this is going.
What's your guess?
Is it Batman versus Iron Man?
No,
Oh,
it's
really?
Batman versus Captain America. Now you got to think. You got the brains. You got Batman. You got the brains. You got the technological advantage, but you got the strength and the heart in Cap.
It's Batman.
You think? Why do you say
Yeah.
Batman?
Because again, he has his ability to do research and know his shit. And you saw with Civil War in the cinematic universe, Spider-Man literally said, "Tony told me to go for your legs," because that's like one of his weak spots. So if given the chance, Batman would know how to take down a super soldier. Pretty much, Batman would know how to take down a super soldier. 100%.
That's fair. I would almost, me personally, I would say Captain America just because Cap is so much stronger than Batman is.
Mm-hmm.
But this is kind of an interesting fight because it ends in a tie. Neither one of them really wins, and it's kind of uncertain. So basically,
That was definitely a writer's decision.
there's a really hardcore fight between the two of them, and they kind of hold their own against each other. Um, and Batman actually saves Captain America at one point. And it kind of ends without a clear winner. There's not really a winner between the two of them. So it's kind of a little bit of a tie, which I could understand because, like you said, Batman is willing to do the research and he can find out about these characters. Captain America does have the strength behind him, but it's not necessarily. Uh, it,
It's
it's a
this
good
is this
matchup. It's a
no
good
this
matchup.
is I 100% believe Batman could take on Captain America because
And win?
again and yeah and the new 52 animated series, the Superman ends up being mind controlled by I think Poison Ivy, and Catwoman and Batman had to escape from him, and Batman literally tells Catwoman, he says, "You know what the plan is, just do it, and I'll stick down here." And Catwoman was like, "Are you sure you could take down Superman?" And literally, all Batman does is as he's putting on literally kryptonite knuckles or whatever, brass knuckles, kryptonite brass knuckles with edges. He says, "I'm sure I can. Deep down, Superman is a good-hearted man, and deep down, I am not." I was like, "Fuck."
That's
That was
awesome.
that was such a badass
Woo!
line, and
That's pretty badass.
it showcased the fact that Batman does have morals, but deep down, he has the brutality to take down.
Yeah.
And again, in the Injustice storyline, Batman literally beats Superman down to a pulp and was ready to kill Superman.
Yeah.
It was in the comics, so it's not in the video games. It was in the comics. He was ready to take down Superman. He
Mhm.
literally said, "Listen, I could kill you right now with no hesitation, but that's not what I want to do."
Right.
Because that was the whole point of the Injustice storyline was Batman was still with his morals, Superman was no longer with his. And I think given enough I would say given enough weight on both of them,
Mhm.
Batman would definitely take down Captain America 100%.
Interesting.
I 100%
It's
agree.
a, it's a very it's an interesting matchup.
Just because I know Batman, again, that one line in the new 52 animated series that said it
That's
all.
pretty dope. I must say
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
Mhm.
So, overall, now this is not any specific character against another. Overall, if the entire Marvel universe went toe to toe with the entire DC universe, which one do you think comes out on top? Because
Marvel.
in this comic book, Marvel does. If you actually tally up which characters won, the Marvel universe does win 6-4.
It would be Marvel.
I would have to agree. I think while Superman and Batman, and while DC does have really strong characters, Shazam, Wonder Woman, Marvel has more. I almost think it's kind of a numbers thing. I think Marvel has more characters that are that top tier level powerful than
Mhm.
DC does, and I think that would be their downfall. So
Yeah, because
overall, I would have to say Marvel would come out on top.
yeah, again, and also I could honestly say probably with certainty the X-Men universe could take down the DCEU alone.
Probably.
I think that's probably the case just because of the different class of different mutants and the fact that the Omega level mutants could
Hmm.
definitely take down
Yeah.
the DCEU or the DC universe. Again, guys, please tell me. I want to hear your fucking I want to hear your opinions on this cuz trust me, I love talking about this shit of cuz I 100% agree. Bar from the MCU and the DCEU in Earth of Comics alone, I think my opinion is like the X-Men universe could take down the DC universe.
I would almost.
And that's not coming from a fucking
Excuse me.
MCU fan guy, okay?
And you're
This
not being an MCU fanboy. It's just the
yeah,
truth.
this is coming from like a comic reader. Like
I think
I
that I
could
could agree
100%
with you.
agree.
Yeah.
So,
I would also I would have to go with Marvel. But
mhm.
guys,